What's up, everybody? It's Alan's Movie Talk. Back at it again. Just got back from seeing Venom The Last Dance, so let's talk about it. Just for some context, I am someone who is a very big fan of Spider-Man and all of his villains, including Venom. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. When I heard, that they were doing these Venom movies, I was excited at the time. And, I did like the first two movies, especially, I'd kind of just went in with lower expectations, knowing what they are. They're kind of just like schlocky fun, good time, nothing really masterful when it comes to filmmaking, but just a fun time at the movies, right? And honestly, a part of me enjoyed these movies because, there had been rumors and speculation for years on if, and when this version of Venom with Tom Hardy was going to cross over and finally meet or fight with a Spider-Man. And, that was kind of always the end goal that I was looking forward to and what made me excited to even want to watch these movies. Obviously, you had that kind of dangling in the first two, which, gave me enough excitement to enjoy these films. And then at the end of, Venom 2, they teased that, with it kind of tying in with No Way Home. And then at the end of No Way Home, they essentially just reversed that all completely and basically said, yeah, no, you're not getting that. So I kind of thought that was a dirtbag move by Sony. And it made me really not all that excited for this film, if I'm being 100% honest. So I went in with even lower expectations than I did for those first two movies. So with all that being said, do I think Venom The Last Dance is a good movie? No. No, I don't. I've been seeing, a decent amount of people online who got to see this movie early and some of the early reactions. And they are, I've seen people say that this is just, the best movie in the Venom trilogy. And truthfully, I disagree with that. I don't know what people were watching. This is a very messy film. And yeah, out of all three, I actually think this might be the worst. I don't know what people were talking about. But, that's just my opinion, so let's get into more details on why I think that. So to start off, getting into details on this review, I do want to be a little bit positive. I didn't hate this film. There were still things I liked about it. And the main thing, just like the first two, is just the relationship between Eddie and Venom. Tom Hardy voices Venom, right? So he does a very good job with the way he does the voice acting for Venom to distinguish them and make them really feel like two separate characters. And I feel like that aspect is the one thing that this series has gotten right with the character, because that's really how their relationship should be. They should be two completely different, Eddie should be a human, Venom should be the symbiote attached to him, but should be his own self, right? His own personality and everything. So I do feel like they've done a good job with that. And, the chemistry with them is very good. They have good humor moments, and that also continues in this film like it did in the first two. I will admit also that I do feel like this movie did have some pretty good fight scenes in it, particularly the opening scene, which you kind of see in the trailer, with a couple of guys in a warehouse going up against Eddie and Venom. And then also the ending battle. I thought it got pretty crazy at the end. I would say that was definitely the best part of the entire film. So yeah, the fight scenes I felt like were actually pretty good in this film. I also feel like the addition of Chiwetel Ejiofor, he played Mordo in Doctor Strange. I felt like he was definitely the best actor in this film. He was kind of the only one to take it serious and, seemed like he was in a film acting, compared to the other characters of the film. So I felt like he was a good addition and did a really good job there. Then also, too, this movie, was advertised as the last Venom movie. Obviously the title, The Venom The Last Dance. And I felt like they did have very good moments in the film, again, particularly about the relationship between Eddie and Venom, where it did feel like this is the end, right? This is the final chapter in these set of movies that we've gotten, and, it kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit, flashes back to some scenes from the first two movies, and it just did a good job with being emotional and feeling like an emotional wrap-up, for the story that we've been telling these last couple movies with Eddie and Venom. And then the last positive for me is that this film definitely especially compared to the first two movie, pushes its PG-13 rating. They actually show more blood than they have, in the previous films. And, I was surprised certain scenes in particular were able to get away with what they did. I've always been someone that I thought that this entire trilogy should have been rated R. That would have gave it, the unique feel and difference that, in contrast to like Spider-Man movies that this film I think desperately needed. But I will say this film definitely had the best use of pushing the boundaries of the PG-13 rating. So that definitely, in some of the action scenes in particular, that made for a more enjoyable experience. With that being said, I got to get into what I didn't like about this film. This plot is just god awful, all over the place. Way too many plot lines. I mean, this is just starting to become a recurring theme with these Sony spin-off films, is that they just do not know how to streamline these movies. They introduce a million plots. Half of them basically are forgotten by the end of the movie. And then the ones that they do still focus on are so undercooked and don't get enough time to be developed that you don't care by the end of the movie. I mean, realistically, like, Eddie's motivation in this film is so, like, it's undercooked. Like, there's no actual investment. It's basically, all your emotions and everything you feel is based off of what you saw in the last two films. There was nothing really that happened when it comes to character development in this movie. And, that's just disappointing. And two, Madam Web had the terrible ADR in, that film. And you didn't get that as egregiously as you did in Madam Web, but it's definitely in here. There's a couple of moments where, like, people have their head turned to the screen and they're still talking, and I'm like, that seems like it was recorded in post. So yeah, with the plot lines, it just feels all over the place, and that tells me that this movie was probably chopped to pieces, reshot, changed in the post-production process, and yeah, like I said, this is just a trend now with these Sony movies, and they all suffer from it, and I'm just kind of over it at this point. And then I kind of briefly mentioned it earlier, but the performances in this film are just uninspired. I mean, besides, Ejiofor, no one in this movie showed up or cared. And that's Tom Hardy included. Yeah, he had a few moments where I felt like he did a good job, and, he got emotional and made the audience emotional, but for the most part, even him, it didn't seem like he cared at all. Like, he just showed up to get paid and move on to something else. He's pretty much checked out at this point. I don't even think he wants to be in these movies unless they, decide to take the character and do it, maybe something in the MCU. But as it stands right now, everyone in this movie seemed like they were checked out. The dialogue was not great. I mean, there was a lot of, like, cringe-inducing lines. A lot of the plot is just explained to you in exposition, which to me is like the hugest cardinal sin that a film can commit. And, there was just so much about this movie that was just such a mess, and I'm finding it hard for me being, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, love Venom. I want to see a good adaptation of this character on screen. I just don't care. Like, it's hard for me to care at this point. Knowing there's really, I don't know where they're going. They teased some things at the end, which also really weren't that great either. And then Null, was the villain of this movie, but doesn't do much. They tease some things about him, but nothing pays off. And, it's supposed to be the final movie. But yet again, we're setting up a big bad that could have implications anywhere in the multiverse. So, I don't know. I'm just kind of at the point where, like, I just don't care. If they announce a Venom 4, I'll probably see it just because I talk about movies on here and everything, but I'm just not excited. And I wasn't excited for this one either. But with that being said, my expectations were low, and I still felt like this movie underdelivered for me. So yeah, guys, as you can tell, not a huge fan of the film. Didn't hate it. Was it worse than Joker 2? No. But did I have as much fun with it as I did the first two Venom films? No, I didn't. And, overall, I just want to kind of talk about, like, the trilogy and everything like that we got as a whole. I really believe taking Venom in this direction and having him be the lethal protector and anti-hero while I enjoyed Tom Hardy's performance in the role, I just don't think it was the right decision for Sony to do. Venom is best when he is Spider-Man's foe. And like I said, when the trilogy first started and the first movie came out, and that's what we thought that this was leading to, I was on board. I enjoyed it. It was, yeah, a little bit of a different take on the character, but I was on board. And now that I know we're never really probably going to get to that point, unless it's in, like a Secret Wars or something, which might still happen, so fine. But I'm not going to like these solo movies because this is all we're doing. It's just a buddy cop story, essentially. And yeah, you get some funny moments, funny laughs, you can have some fun with the films. But essentially they amount to nothing. We are a full trilogy in, and I can't tell you really what the purpose of this trilogy was. I mean, just besides having Venom movies. That's it. So, yeah, overall, disappointed in this trilogy. Disappointed in this movie. On a rating scale, I don't really even know where I'm at with it. I'd probably say maybe like a 3 out of 5. Like I said, didn't hate it, but there was just so much wrong with it, and I wasn't excited for it anyways as it was, so it just kind of, it underdelivered for me, and like I said, wasn't a terrible time, but wasn't the best either. So, yeah, if you guys have seen Venom The Last Dance, go ahead, comment below, let me know what you thought, and even if you want to talk about the train wreck that has been the Sony spin-off villain movies that they have, let's just talk about that. So, yeah, have a great night, everyone.